30 seconds and counting.
There were plenty of years where there were guys who would dread being drafted by the Buffalo Bills. Not anymore.
Astronauts report it feels good. T-minus 25 seconds.
Brandon Beane realizes they're in a window of 2 to 3 years max to get this done while the iron's still hot. And getting Von Miller into that situation was big for the Bills.
10, 9.
Oh, baby.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Great interview, guys.
What is up, Buffalo Fanatics? C-Bot here with you, live on the Buffalo Fanatics YouTube channel on a wild card Saturday evening. And that, of course, can only mean one thing. It is the smoke break powered by BetUS. Sorry if I'm being a little bit quiet. As you can tell, if you watched last night, if you're watching right now, am not at the Z-Bot home studios. I'm at the Z-Bot parent studios, and Z-Bot's parents are sound asleep. So I am trying my best to keep it down low as we recap the Saturday wild card round. And my God, was it abysmal. If you watched Rico and I last night, all we were hoping for was some decent games this afternoon. We couldn't have gotten more of the opposite. A couple of blowouts that result in the Houston Texans moving on to the divisional round. And in nobody's surprise, the Baltimore Ravens moving on to the divisional round as well, which of course means if our Buffalo Bills take care of business tomorrow afternoon, the Buffalo Bills will host the Baltimore Ravens in Buffalo in the divisional round. So that is set. Of course, the only two games today were AFC games. The Bills will be the final AFC game of the wild card round tomorrow afternoon. So we already know what the divisional round is looking like next week. We will have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the Houston Texans, a team that they beat just a couple of weeks ago. And then, as I mentioned, of course, if the Bills get it done tomorrow, they will be taking on the Ravens. Well, I guess I should say, I'm not even putting it out into the ether. If the Bills somehow find a way to blow tomorrow, then the Texans would take on the Ravens. You would then have the Broncos taking on the Chiefs. Let's pray to God that's not even a possibility. Let's pray that's not even something we have to talk about. We're near midnight Eastern, meaning game day is right around the corner. And I'm heading to the game bright and early tomorrow. We are leaving here, Rochester, that is. We're leaving here around 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. So I got to get some sleep. But before we head to bed, we have got to talk about what we saw today. And what we saw today was a little bit of what we expected and a little bit of what we did not expect. Let's start there. Let's start with the first game that kicked us off this 2024 playoff round. Houston Texans hosting the LA Chargers. The Chargers had came into this game as a 3-point favorite. If you had watched either of these teams the last month, it was visible that the LA Chargers were playing the superior football. The Houston Texans were trending this way. It seemed the Chargers were trending this way. Big bounce back year for LA after hiring Harbaugh, immediately get into the playoffs. And they had been playing some of their best ball, it felt like, down the stretch. And even with that out of the question, not even considering what they had done recently, if you had only considered what Houston had done recently, it just felt like Houston was poised for an immediate first-round exit. What we saw this afternoon, I mean, granted, things happen, okay? If Houston would have won in this game 19-16 on a final field goal, stuff happens, right? You would get it any given Sunday, any given Saturday. What we witnessed, I could never have foreseen this. I mean, it was insane. 32-12 was the final score in Houston. One of the oddest games I've ever witnessed. In the beginning of this game, Houston looked exactly like I thought they were going to look. They came into this game exactly as I predicted. Flat, nothing on offense, incapable of moving the ball. And because of that, I had felt the Chargers were going to take this. And early on in the game, it 1,000% felt like it was the Chargers' day, and they were going to get out of there with relative ease. They go up 6-0 early. They go right down the field early on their first drive. Really nice drive, dinking and dunking down the field, running it, passing it, all the way down the field. 3rd and short, they don't convert. Harbaugh settles for the field goal. They go up 3-0. Houston's offense could not do anything all the way up till right near the halftime mark. To get to 6-0, they had turned over C.J. Stroud. They get a field goal off of that. And it was at that point where it just felt like the Chargers were eventually going to get their offense going a bit more than they were. They were eventually going to turn those field goals into touchdowns. On the other side of things, it just didn't seem like the Texans had anything. And if you were to ask me after that first quarter that Justin Herbert would go on to have, based on EPA, one of the worst playoff performances by a quarterback in NFL history, I would have looked at you like you were insane. That's exactly what wound up happening. The Chargers completely went away from what their identity was all year. They had 9 carries by J.K. Dobbins for 26 yards. This is a team that likes to win with defense and running the football, and that is because that is how their head coach likes to win. He just won a national championship with the Michigan Wolverines a year ago playing that exact style of football. That is Harbaugh-branded football. Instead, the game was put in the hands of Justin Herbert, who would go on to throw 4 interceptions, a legitimate Nathan Peterman-type performance from Justin Herbert in his second playoff game. Vlad McConkey, tip of the cap to him. He had an incredible day, 9 receptions, just shy of 200 yards and a touchdown. But Justin Herbert was abysmal. And oftentimes we have been told that Justin Herbert was a victim of circumstance. We had been told that Justin Herbert was not able to get to where we thought he should be because of coaching, because of lack of talent surrounding him, what have you. Now, I understand that the Chargers do not have the most potent offense by any means, but today was 90% seemingly on him. He was atrocious. 14 of 32 in a playoff game by a guy. You got to remember, this isn't a rookie coming in here, right? And it's not like you're going up against the 85 Bears. And we're also talking about a guy here that when you do list off the best quarterbacks in football, here's how it typically goes. You list off Mahomes, Lamar, Allen, Burrow. And then you start getting into that second tier. And it seems that Herbert is always thrown into that second tier despite only playing in one playoff game and losing it, in which many people blamed that loss on Brandon Staley. Brandon Staley, of course, would go on to lose his job a year ago. The GM would lose his job a year ago. It felt like everything was going according to how we had viewed it, right? The Chargers' issues were all based on the coaching, based on the front office. Now, do I still think Justin Herbert's a good quarterback? I do. But man, the limited opportunities that you've been given, the blame primarily has been put on anybody but you. You get put in a spot where you're a favorite to win that game. You have an early lead. Your team looks like the far superior team early. And you throw an interception that you throw the type of interception that you do in the beginning of that game. CJ Stroud throws one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen. They're already up. Throws a horrendous interception. The next play, Justin Herbert throws it across his body all the way to the opposite side of the field, immediately intercepted. Immediately. You were gifted this game in the beginning. Sorry for the text, by the way. Caroline's home alone right now, and she's hating it. She's hating it. I'm not out of town often as the texts continue to roll in. Let me let her know. I usually have my phone on Do Not Disturb, except I don't have Caroline on Do Not Disturb. And So when she texts, bing, 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 it's the most annoying thing. Got to tell her to hop on the show. Then it'll make it seem like I'm in the room with her. So you're up early. You look like the better team. In fact, so much so that the first play of the game for the Houston Texans offense, they fumble the football. I mean, the first play of the game, it just felt like Houston came out exactly like we predicted they would. They came out exactly like they had looked the last month. They come out first play of the game offensively. They fumble the football. The Chargers were gifted 2 early scores. Well, I shouldn't say gifted the first one. They earned the first one. They went all the way down the field. But you're gifted an additional score in the first quarter off of a turnover on the first play. Now, maybe the problem is they didn't cash in terms of getting into the end zone on those first 2 drives. That could certainly be one of the issues that allowed the Texans to get back into the football game and then go on to dominate. I think it definitely was one of the issues. You settle for field goals, you dominate all first half, and you blink, and all of a sudden the Texans don't have to do much to take a first half lead. But man, I go back to where it all seemed to start to unravel, and that is when C.J. Stroud threw that horrific interception. I don't even know where he was trying to go with the football. He just lobbed it up in the air. It was picked off on the sideline. You then have the opportunity to then go up at minimum 2 scores. And Herbert immediately throws the football away. Interception. This game was dominated by the Chargers for roughly 26 minutes of football in the first half. And then all of a sudden, right before halftime, the Texans never look back. They go down the field, 98-yard drive after not doing anything all game. Nico Collins touchdown. Chargers stall out. Texans get the football back. Drive down the field, 2-minute drill, field goal. The fact that the Texans were up 10-6 at half, to me, was absolutely insane. Insane. Like, if you had watched that game up until about the 4-minute mark of the first half and then turned it off and came back in the third quarter, you would be stunned to see what the score was, just how bad Houston looked. And really, the Chargers just look like the superior team. The offseason is going to look brutal in terms of the conversations surrounding Justin Herbert. I mean, I have the highlights up here on my TV right now. I mean, the pick 6 too. I mean, some of it wasn't entirely on him, but that ball was thrown extremely high. You got Ladd McConkey, who's a shorter wide receiver. That's an easy out route throw, and he threw it probably a full foot over his head. I mean, could he have caught it? Yeah, I guess, but I'm not going to put the blame on McConkey there. You threw the ball way over his head. He made an attempt at it. It's tipped. It's a pick 6. I mean, really. Absolutely crazy. And the fact that the Houston Texans were able to win this game by 20 points, man, oh man, there's going to be a lot of looking in the mirror by these LA Chargers. It felt like they had momentum going into it. Harbaugh was completely outcoached by DeMeco Ryans, completely outcoached. He had no answer. That offense had no answer. You look at the box score. Justin Herbert had 14 completions and 4 interceptions, damn near a 50% completion percentage. 242 yards through the air, 197 of them came from one wide receiver. That's it. And when you factor in J.K. Dobbins' day on the ground, I can't get over that stat line. 9 carries for 26 yards. They ran the ball for a total, well, let me do the quick math here. They ran the ball for 50 total yards in that game. 50 total yards. Wow. That was just, it was atrocious. And you know what's funny? The Chargers have mostly been the same type of team my whole life, where they've always been pretty good, right? You go back to the Phillip Rivers days, and even now, ever since they drafted Herbert, they've always been pretty good. But they've always been pretty damn good at being pretty damn bad in big spots. And this was no different today. And I had thought that the hiring of Jim Harbaugh would change that. And maybe it will at some point. They still have, I think, a ways to go offensively in terms of getting more weapons for Justin Herbert. But I think if you were to have just looked at this game objectively, I think the Chargers were a better football team than the Houston Texans, and they didn't look anything close to it after that halftime. Really, after the first 4 minutes, the 4 minutes prior to halftime. Give all the credit in the world to C.J. Stroud and these Houston Texans for turning it around after an abysmal first quarter of football. Stroud did not look good until all of a sudden he did. After that pick, he was pretty much nails. 22 of 33, 282 yards. Joe Mixon played extremely well, and this was also a big difference in the football game. The Texans could run the football. The LA Chargers, like I just mentioned, 50 total yards on the ground. They could not. And that was a major difference in the football game, I think, because not only did you have Joe Mixon run for over 100 yards and a touchdown, but you also had C.J. Stroud using his legs as well, and he ran in some crucial moments, and he ended up finishing with 42 yards. And we know C.J. Stroud can scramble and run the football, but I don't think you're expecting C.J. Stroud to run for 42 yards routinely, and he did that. So you had over 100 additional yards on the ground than the LA Chargers did. You also finished with more yards through the air. The way that this game started, I just would not have imagined it. You got to give credit to Nico Collins, too. You have Tank Dell out. You have Stephon Diggs out. Everybody knows the ball is going to Nico Collins, and they still really couldn't mitigate his impact on the football game. 7 receptions, 122 yards, and he had the first touchdown of the game that really got the ball rolling for the Houston Texans. And I also have to give a shout out to C.J. Stroud for distributing the ball all over the place. He had 8 different receivers in this game. And if they're going to win, that's how they're going to have to do it. Because if they're missing Tank Dell and they're missing Stephon Diggs, they got to get these other guys involved in order to take the pressure off of Nico Collins, in order to take the pressure off of C.J. Stroud to get the ball to Nico Collins. Because we've seen with that offensive line, when they get pressure on C.J. Stroud, it's not going to be a fun day for him. And if you're able to take away Nico Collins, they're pretty much cooked. But what they were able to do today, I felt, was kind of limit the pressure by the Chargers, which kind of shocked me. I thought they were going to have a solid day. They seemed too early on, but they were able to overcome that. I think a lot of that had to do with being able to run the football. You then have to respect that aspect of their game. It allows things to open up in the pass game. And C.J. Stroud really took advantage of that, getting the ball to 8 different receivers, man. I got to tell you, this is a complete shock to me. I thought the Chargers were going to win. Like I mentioned earlier, it wouldn't have stunned me in the slightest if the Texans did win, but by a narrow margin. I mean, I'm talking like 7 points max. The fact that they won this game by 20 points, this is absolutely crazy to me. Their reward more than likely is going to be a rematch against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead off of what will be a 25 day bye. Good luck to them. I think we all know who we're rooting for in that game. They played them, I will say, that was part of that 4-team combo there that played the week before Christmas on Saturday and then Christmas Day. And when you look at how the Steelers fared against the Chiefs compared to how the Texans fared against the Chiefs, the Texans played them far more tough. And they had a chance to win that game for a while until the Chiefs pulled away. I think the Texans will make that game interesting. There's absolutely no way in hell I could possibly envision this Houston Texans team going into Arrowhead and pulling off that upset, but I do think that they could give them a game. But I personally had thought that the game was going to be Harbaugh and the division rival going into Arrowhead and really making things difficult for the Chiefs. I mean, you know how it goes. You play a team for a third time. I don't care how good or bad you are. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to get that W. And I thought that was going to be an advantage for fans of the Ravens, fans of the Bills, fans of anybody trying to get the Chiefs bounced, of course. I thought that the chances of a Chargers upset far outweighed the chances of a Texans upset. They couldn't even get the win in which they were favored. So it'll be on the shoulders of the Houston Texans in terms of getting it done against the Kansas City Chiefs should the Buffalo Bills take care of business tomorrow. Before we continue on and talk about the Baltimore Ravens game, speaking of that Buffalo Bills game, the line is currently up on BetUS. We talked about it all night last night, and it's still around the same as what we discussed last night. Right now on BetUS, the Buffalo Bills, 9.5-point favorites against the Denver Broncos, 1 p.m. tomorrow afternoon, with a total of 47.5. That total is interesting to me. I could see this being more of a lower scoring game. At the same time, however, I think if the Bills get things going, it hits the over. I think if it goes under, that leans advantage Denver, obviously. I think Denver would love to have this game go under the total because I think that would spell a better chance for them to remain in the football game and potentially pull off the upset. I think it'll be right around that type of game, right around that type of total. I think that number's spot on. The 9.5, awfully interesting to me. If you didn't watch Rico and I last night, I do think the Bills cover that spread, but very narrowly. I think it'll be close throughout the football game, but I do think the Bills pull away late. If you agree with me or disagree with me, get in on the action. A lot more fun when you do. Get in on the action on BetUS using the promo code YouTube150. It'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus up to $2,000 on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next two after that. Let's go take a peek at what you're saying in the chat right now. I'm interested to get your guys' thoughts on these games that we saw today before we start talking about the Ravens here, because I'm dying to see if you guys had thought this was going to happen. I mean, let me know in the chat right now, did anybody foresee, because I'd love to know, did anybody foresee the Texans winning this type of way today? I'd love to hear if you did and why. Because, like I said, I mean, it wouldn't stun me. You got a 4-5 matchup. You can't be stunned by whoever wins the game. But if we're talking about how bad Houston looked towards the end of the year, you got to be sick if you're a Chargers fan. Let me just say that. All the bullshit you've gone through as a Chargers fan, you finally get the one at coach, right? And you feel like you got the quarterback. I mean, let's think about it like this. Right? So let's go back to what year is this for Herbert? It feels like he's been in the league forever. And what's crazy about Herbert is he's done nothing. I mean, we anoint Herbert into that second tier of NFL quarterbacks because of the body type, because of the arm, the athleticism, but he's done nothing. I mean, we can sit here and argue till we're blue in the face about, well, Josh Allen hasn't done this compared to Lamar, and Lamar hasn't done this compared to Allen. We're still talking about two of the greatest to ever do it. You start getting into these conversations about Herbert, and trust me, you know where I stand on this debate, the whole Tua Herbert debate. I mean, I think Herbert's twice as good as Tua. The crazy thing about it is Herbert has accomplished absolutely nothing more than Tua Tagovailoa. It's wild. And you get into that kind of pile of these quarterbacks that all seem to roughly be the same. And it's Herbert, and it's Tua, and it's Trevor Lawrence. They're like enigmas. They're very odd. Where like any given week you tune in and you're like, man, that looks elite. That looks good. But when you watch the body of work, you start to understand that like even though they can really flash at times, they're not particularly close to that next level. And this is what I talk about all the time. When you're at that level, the line between that level and the level below, it might not seem like a lot, but it is a lot. It's kind of like what I talk about all the time between the Chiefs and the Bills. Like the difference between the Chiefs and the Bills isn't a lot at all. When you get down to being able to actually execute and get to that level, it's very, very difficult. And we've seen that with Tua, with Lawrence, with Herbert. I mean, they have pretty much nothing right now to show for their career. The only thing that we have to show for all three of those guys' careers right now is one wild card win for Trevor Lawrence, and that was against Justin Herbert in a massive debacle, a massive blown game. And all that's resulted since then is a firing at head coach of Doug Peterson. Trevor Lawrence will now be on what? His fourth head coach. Urban Meyer being fired. He had an interim. Then you had Doug Peterson. He'll be now on his fourth head coach. Justin Herbert's on what now? His third head coach. Tua's on, God, what's Tua on? I think this is his second head coach. I can't remember if Flores had an interim or not. Either way, pretty wild. I was Googling something here. What was I going to Google? Was it Herbert? Yeah. So based on the EPA per play, apparently, let me make sure I get this right. Because, I mean, this is how bad Justin Herbert played today. I'm going to get to the chat in a second here because I'm interested to see. Let me know once again what you guys think about that game in the comments because like I said, I'm stunned. So this is according to Sheil Kapadia. I hope I'm saying that right. Sheil Kapadia. Big shout out to Sheil. He's got some great stats from the weekend or from today's games on his page over on Twitter. And he is with The Ringer. And he tweets out earlier, out of 214 quarterback performances in the playoffs over the last 10 seasons, the Justin Herbert game this afternoon ranks 213th in EPA per pass play. Only Brian Hoyer's game for the Texans in a 30-0 loss to the Chiefs back in 2015 ranked lower. So if we're looking at the last decade based on EPA per play, Trevor Lawrence, outside of one game by Brian Hoyer, had the worst performance in the last decade in the playoffs at quarterback. I mean, that's pretty wild. That's pretty wild, especially for a guy who felt like he was finally going to be given his opportunity to really earn I think the discourse surrounding him, right? I think Herbert is talked about like he's done more than he has. We've oftentimes felt like Tua's talked like that. And I think Trevor Lawrence has been talked. I think it's less now because of how bad Jacksonville has been. The Dolphins and the Chargers have been more competitive than Jacksonville, it's felt like, over the bulk of their careers here. But Trevor Lawrence had the whole ideology behind him of that he was going to be the next Manning, right? The next Andrew Luck. He might have been the most highly touted prospect of my lifetime, Trevor Lawrence, coming out of college. And it just hasn't lived up close to what we all thought it might be. So I kind of lump those three guys in there. I still think I would take Lawrence and Herbert over Tua, but I think at this point you're kind of splitting hairs. I do think Herbert is a better quarterback than Tua, and I'm not trying to sit here and let one wild card game let me, kind of swing my whole thought process. I mean, I think to me it would be a no-brainer if I'm out in the schoolyard and I got to pick a quarterback to lead my team. Yeah, I'm taking Justin Herbert over Tua. But at the end of the day here, like with a lot of these things, you can argue all you want, but the reality is neither guy has done anything. And I think today was the most shocking realization based on how we think about those guys. Because it just felt like this was the moment that Herbert could rise. Oh, I remember what I was going to say here. Kind of getting full circle here. So in talking about the Buffalo Bills, kind of comparing what this might feel like to that. So think about if you're a Chargers fan for a second. You've been waiting so long to get out of that depth of mediocrity, right? You've been waiting so long to finally ascend from the midst of just never taking that next step, right? And it feels like you have the quarterback, right? Similar to how when the Bills drafted Allen, it was a mediocre first year. It was a bad first year. I can't even say mediocre. The second year, obviously, take a major step forward. You have guys like John Brown. You have guys like Cole Beasley. The defense was playing lights out, and it felt like they had something there, and they make the playoffs, right? You get a 16-0 lead on Houston. But like we talked about last night, I think the youth of that team, the inexperience of that team, the Texans were a more poised and more mature team at that point, and it showed towards the end. That's how they were able to pull away. But you saw it with the Bills. You saw it, right? Year two, you saw it with Allen. You saw the potential there. And so at that point, you had felt like with the hiring of McDermott, this defense was really playing well. It felt like they had the quarterback. And you get to the playoffs and you lose. But it felt like the next time they get back there, man, they could start to really be building something here. And then you kind of compare this with the Chargers. And it's a little bit different in terms of the length of time it took to get back to the playoffs for Justin Herbert. But you go to Urban Meyer and it's terrible, right? And then you go to Brandon Staley and I'm thinking of Trevor Lawrence, with Urban Meyer. You have Brandon Staley and it's terrible. It's awful. And you have to fire him and you have to fire the GM. And you get Harbaugh, which undisputably is one of the better coaches of my lifetime if we're talking about both collegiate and professional football. The guy's been incredible. Very few people have played in the Super Bowl and have played in the national championship at the head coaching level. And he's done that. I mean, he's won everywhere he's been. You've heard it before. So you get that guy. You get the top head coach candidate last year. The Chargers have felt for a while like they've had the quarterback. They get to the playoffs. They blow that game to Trevor Lawrence. Now they get back, and it feels like you have the quarterback. It feels like you have the running back. It feels like you have the defense. It feels like you have the coach, and you get waxed. I mean, you get the doors blown off you by a team that you're favored to beat. And I think that that's what's got to be the most disheartening part about this game if you're a Chargers fan, because it felt like you were finally getting to where you wanted to be. And you saw this afternoon, they're not even close. They're not even close. If you're going to lose to a Houston Texans team that looked like a bottom 16 team the last month of the season, the way that you lost that game, man, oh man. Rough look today for Harbaugh. Really, really rough look for Justin Herbert. And you know what kills me about this game? And it really is an indictment, I think, on the pressure that got to him today, the gravity of the moment. That guy had one of the most efficient years I've ever seen this past season at the quarterback position. I mean, he threw 3 interceptions in 2024, 3 picks. The guy had 4 today. Have you ever seen anything like that? Man, it's just crazy. Super chat coming in from Cody. Go to Delta Sonic for those player glasses. Dope. Oh, I saw the picture of those. I think I saw a picture that the Bills put out. Yeah, what are they, like collective, the collector glasses that Delta Sonic has, right? They're like of all the players. Yeah, I'll have to go check that out. Appreciate it, Cody. You know I'm all in on stuff like that. I'll go check it out. The problem with like the glasses and stuff, though, is like I never know what to do with them. Like I have like Bills wine and like weird random stuff with the Bills logo on it, and I just like never know what to do with it. But I am definitely gonna go check that out. All right, let's transition. Nightcap, Ravens Steelers. This game went very similar to how I thought it would. There's gonna have to be some very serious conversations, I believe, in Pittsburgh. This team is the exact same team every season. They do not look like they are getting any better anytime soon. Every year, it's insanely strange how they are able to do this. It's so hard to define, and it's so hard to then go and sit here and say, well, maybe you're going to have to talk about moving on from Tomlin. But I'm starting to think, if you're a Pittsburgh fan, even for me on the outside looking in, I'm starting to think it too. These guys are getting dominated in the playoffs year after year. What's so strange about the Pittsburgh Steelers is in the regular season, they're phenomenal. It's not that they just have a winning record every year, as you know, with Tomlin, but I mean, they do it pretty impressively. Like there was a point in time this year where what were the Steelers, 10-3 before going on that 4-game skid? Like it wasn't like they were barely eking out a winning record. Like they start the year off so hot, and they really do that all the way up until about Thanksgiving, and then something happens. When the snow starts to hit the ground and the weather gets super cold and do or die football really starts to roll around, these guys implode. And it's year in and year out. I mean, this even happened back at the end of Ben Roethlisberger's career there. And you're now looking at Mike Tomlin. What is he now? 0-5, 0-6 in his last 5-6 playoff games there. And in every single one of these playoff games, I saw the numbers earlier. I mean, he's getting destroyed. I think before this game, he was losing by an average of like, I think it was like 4+ scores per game in these playoff games. And in every single first half of all these playoff games, he's losing by at least a score. In multiple playoff games, he's allowing 21+ points in these first halves. I mean, Baltimore essentially took the second half off and won this game by 2 scores. They dominated them. I think you're going to look back at the box score of this, or you're going to look back at the final of this game. It's on again right now on NFL Network, and I'm just looking up here. And, you're going to look back at the final score of this game, and you're going to think, all right, I mean, Baltimore obviously was the better team. You lose by 14. No. I think it really felt like Baltimore could have won this game 4-0. It was nowhere close. And you felt that early. I mean, when you think about what I just said, 40-0, they were up 21-0 at half. All they would have had to have done is replicate what they did in the first half, and it would have been 42-0. I mean, give credit to Russell Wilson and George Pickens. They made a couple of nice plays, but that was it. I mean, that was it. If it wasn't for a George Pickens kind of like what the hell just happened type touchdown, and then one good drive for Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh had one good drive, and it was the drive before that crazy catch by Pickens that wound up being a touchdown. They had one decent drive this entire game. They couldn't, once again, the theme of the 2 losing teams today that got destroyed the inability to run the football. Najee Harris had 6 carries for 17 yards. Well, like I mentioned to you earlier, you have the Chargers rushing for 50 yards, right? The Steelers, I can't even believe the stat line is real. I'm shitting on the Chargers for running for 50 yards. Folks, the Steelers just ran for 29 yards in that football game. Steelers ran for 29 yards in that football game. I understand you're down early. I understand you're trying to chase. You got potentially the 3-time MVP on the other side there, and you don't even attempt really to establish a run game. This was an atrocious performance by Pittsburgh. The time of possession battle, and this is where I'm like, how do you not at least try to run the football? Baltimore had 39 minutes and 33 seconds to Pittsburgh's 20 minutes and 27 seconds. I mean, this is where I said, you're going to look at this score and you're not going to think it was all that bad. It was brutal. I mean, they dominated them. They had literally double the time of possession, and it did feel at times like Baltimore was just kind of dicking around in the second half. Kind of felt like they went away from the run game a little bit more than they were doing in the first half, and they weren't being as efficient. That's probably just a result of already being up 21-0, and you're probably under the impression you're going to win. How could you not be? Not only did you have the lead 21-0, not only were you up, but like just the feel of the game. Even if you didn't have the lower third, even if you didn't have the score bug on the bottom, if you just watched that game and had like a general sense of feel, way more physical Baltimore, way more physical, way more athletic, way faster, and just way more. They had much more of a desire. It felt like Pittsburgh felt like they just kind of got right off. They just got off the bus and walked out there. And maybe that's because they knew that they were going to get rolled. I have no idea. The way the last month went for them, losing 4 straight games. But when I said earlier, a lot of tough conversations are going to have to be had in Pittsburgh. I mean, how could they not? Mike Tomlin's getting destroyed in these playoffs. They're getting destroyed. And, you got Bills fans calling for McDermott's head every time something bad goes down in the postseason. But think about what they've been doing in the postseason and coming up just this short, right? I mean, imagine what it would be like if McDermott was losing in the wild card round routinely, annually by 20-plus points, and they just continue to re-sign you. And, with Mike Tomlin, I've always been the guy that says, I don't know how you can get rid of him. And even right now, I sit there and I still don't know how you can get rid of him, because I know for a fact if you do get rid of him, he will be hired within probably 48 hours by one of these teams that's in need of a coach. I'm fully aware of that. But much like Andy Reid and the Philadelphia Eagles back in the early 2000s, Andy Reid was getting to Super Bowls. Andy Reid was winning games with Donovan McNabb. I mean, there was a terrific team in the Philadelphia Eagles, Terrell Owens, Donovan McNabb, right? But it just wasn't working out. It wasn't getting to that next step. They moved on, and I think both franchises have been better for it. Philadelphia has been into multiple Super Bowls since then. They've won one, of course, and we all know what Andy Reid's done in Kansas City ever since he's left there. Maybe it's time for a mutual parting between the Pittsburgh Steelers and Mike Tomlin, because I don't see this getting better anytime soon. Ever since Ben Roethlisberger's prime was out the window, this team has been the exact same football team every single year. You go back to right around the time it felt like Ben Roethlisberger's time in Pittsburgh was coming to an end. This team has felt and looked and ended their season the exact same way. They have a great defense. They have an offense just competent enough to win them football games, mostly due to the ground game. What was different about this year is it felt like Russell Wilson at about the midway point of the season, or after about the midway point of the season, when he had gotten the start over Justin Fields after coming back from injury, and he was really cooking, man. I mean, it felt like Russ was getting back to a little closer to what we had known him as opposed to what we'd remember him to be in Denver last year. And now you look at the end of the year, and it was like, man, that was a brief flash in the pan. So I'm very interested to see what the offseason looks like for Pittsburgh. There would be part of me that would, of course, be shocked if they moved off from Tomlin. I'm pretty sure that the Steelers have had what? Let me just fact check myself here. They've only had 3 coaches, I believe, in the last 70 years. What's crazy when you think, I mean, that's crazy in itself to think about, but if you just think about it like this. Within the next 2 weeks here, Caleb Williams was drafted by the Chicago Bears in April, and he will be on his third head coach by probably this time next week or 2 weeks from now. What the Pittsburgh Steelers have done from top to bottom, they're one of the most well-run franchises in all of sports. But sometimes it feels like you have to make a move that's best for both sides, and I don't know if that's where we're getting to here. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments. But I wonder how much more you continue to sign up for this. Let me see how many years it's been. So it's something crazy. I gotta double check and see the amount of years it's been where they've had just 3 coaches. This is unbelievable. Yeah. I mean, guys, this is like one of the more absurd stats I think ever. Since 1969, the Pittsburgh Steelers have had 3 total head coaches. 3. Chuck Noll was the head coach from 69 to 91. Bill Cowher was the head coach from 92 to 06. Tomlin was the head coach from 07 to now. I mean, that is absurd. The best way I can put this, my dad was born in, I think, 68. We're talking 2 generations of my family, and there have been 3 head coaches, 3 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. From when my dad was born to today, me, his son, being 27 years old, they've had 3 head coaches. That is insane. And as I just mentioned to you, Caleb Williams, who was drafted in April, will be on his 3rd head coach a week or 2 from now. So it will be a monumental move if they do move off from Tomlin or if he moves off from them. I mean, I don't know where he's at with this. I don't know how he feels about it. I have a lot of respect for Mike Tomlin, obviously, but it just feels like they're not getting better anytime soon. And the reason I say that is because for like what's felt like the last 7 years here, they've been the exact same team. And I don't quite know what's going to be different anytime soon. They're never bad. And the other problem too is you're never bad enough to get the franchise quarterback. Russell Wilson's not going to be your franchise quarterback. Justin Fields isn't going to be your franchise quarterback. So who is? You're just going to continue this carousel where you go from, Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett and now Russell Wilson, Justin Fields. Like it's going to be an endless carousel of just mediocrity or maybe slightly better than that. So I'm not entirely sure. I had hopes in this game, as it is, of course, a division rival. We've seen Pittsburgh give Lamar and the Ravens fits. In fact, we saw them do that earlier this year in a really narrow, low-scoring win, 18-16. I had hopes that maybe we'd get something similar today. It wasn't even close. The Ravens rolled. And, I'm not going to get down the whole MVP talk again. I thought Lamar played really well today. But if you want a perfect example of what the offense goes through with these Baltimore Ravens, you saw it today, and it's not. You tell me in the chat if you're weighing out the Ravens offense on a scale, and it's on a 100-point scale, how many points go to Derrick Henry and how many points go to Lamar Jackson in terms of how you're balancing that scale? Because the last time that the Steelers played these Ravens, Derrick Henry had 160-plus yards. And he did it again today in a do-or-die game against a division rival. And you would think, based on how he played him the last time, the Steelers would have some sort of adjustment for him this time. And maybe they did, but you'd never know it because it certainly didn't work. Derrick Henry had more yards on the ground than Lamar had through the air. Derrick Henry went nuclear today. 26 carries, 186 yards on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. And when you factor in, like I mentioned to you earlier, that the Pittsburgh Steelers had 26 yards on the ground. I mean, Derrick Henry had 26 yards before this game started. 186 yards on the ground. And that wasn't, of course, the full story because Lamar also ran a ton. I was stunned by this. And this is something to keep an eye on, of course, should the Bills, of course, win tomorrow and take on these Ravens next week. They ran Lamar a lot. A lot. In fact, early in the game, there was a sequence where it felt like Lamar ran it five or six times in a row. Lamar ran the ball today for 15 carries. Ran the ball 15 times for 81 yards. Once again, it's not all numbers based. Lamar was great today, I thought. But it's just the fact that if it just feels like if Josh Allen had Derrick Henry doing a $186 and 2 scores behind him, I don't know who the hell would beat the Buffalo. Then again, however, I think you're looking at Baltimore right now. I'm not entirely sure if they're not the best team remaining if they play like they did tonight. Now, a lot of that could have to do with how bad Pittsburgh is. I understand that. But it looked like tonight, the saving grace for the whole narrative surrounding Lamar's inability to win in the playoffs is going to be relying on Derrick Henry. I don't even think Lamar has got to pull a full, I don't think Lamar has got to do anything magnificent. I mean, he had a couple of great plays today. That touchdown right before half where he made the entire Pittsburgh D line look like fools and toss one into the end zone. I mean, it was great. But it looks like if you can just get Derrick Henry to play like they have him playing, I mean, Lamar is just going to have to play clean, and that's what he's doing. Lamar was 16 to 21, 175 yards, 2 touchdowns, and then 81 yards on the ground. So at the end of the day, you can talk about who, like I asked you earlier, you can talk about who's more credited for this W on the offensive side, Derrick Henry or Lamar. All Lamar really is going to have to do here is just play efficient. And that's exactly what he was tonight. I mean, 5 incompletions, right? Didn't turn the ball over, ran it very well. And, 2 touchdowns through the air as well. I was just very intrigued by the amount they ran him. It didn't feel like they had to do that today to win the game. I mean, Derrick Henry did enough running for him. I was shocked that they ran Lamar 15 times. It seemed pretty evident early in this football game that the Ravens were going to win it. So I was shocked they kind of kept going back to that well. But look out. You watch Baltimore today, the Bills are going to, if the Bills win tomorrow, they are going to have probably the best game of the year defensively to win this game. They're going to probably have the best game of the year they've had defensively, and they're probably going to have to score, I would imagine, 34 points. Minimum 30 points. I don't know how you're beating this team not scoring 30 points. I think today was the first time they hadn't scored 30 since early December, and they could have scored 30 with ease if they wanted to. They had 21 at half, and like I said, they just kind of seemed to take the second half off to some degree. The Bills win tomorrow, and they are going to have to find a way to implement a game plan next week that can just limit the impact that this running game has. You're not going to stop it. You're not going to come close to stopping it. You're going to have to just find a way to mitigate it to some degree. You're also going to have to find a way to get a turnover. I mean, you're going to have to. You're going to have to get at least a turnover. They run the ball like they did tonight, and there's just, I don't know who's beating them. It's not just Buffalo. I don't know who's beating them. Now, you go back to that Philly game where they lost. It's just kind of an example that comes to my mind. Not only did Justin Tucker really cost them in that game with the amount of missed kicks that he had, but they were able to kind of win in the trenches. And I think you're going to have to do that. Not just going to have to do it to have a chance, to win. You're going to have to do it to have a chance, I think. They look really good. I mean, they look really, really, really good. You're watching that offense. I mean, put your blinders down for a second. You're watching that Ravens offense, man. That's special. That offense is special. They knew Lamar was going to run it some of these times. They knew Lamar was going to run it, and they still couldn't stop it just because of how much respect you have to have for Derrick Henry. It's such a unique offense. I can't think of a comparable team to this in terms of the weaponry combination that is Lamar and Derrick Henry. I cannot think of a comparable comparison. you got maybe one of the most physical backs we've ever seen. And I also think that Derrick Henry, this type of running back, is going to be phased out of the game. I don't know if I'll ever see another Derrick Henry type back in my life. The running back is becoming more like a wide receiver. It's becoming much more of a hybrid. It's becoming much more of a high flying, fast paced type player. Derrick Henry's more like a Jim Brown or a Jerome Bettis, except that he's got wheels, and it doesn't look, when you watch him run, like, it doesn't look fast, but it's because his strides, every time he takes a step, it's like a full yard. The guy is an absolute beast. You saw it tonight, man. I forget who it was. Was it Joey Porter? I don't even know who the hell it was. He threw him on the ground like a rag doll on the sideline. I mean, just threw him on the ground. You know, Snook's coming in. He's saying, what the fuck? What the F? We have Cook. I love James Cook. But he's exactly what I just mentioned. He's that hybrid type back. James Cook, what I'm saying, and I'm not discrediting James Cook. He's phenomenal. But my God, I mean, Derrick Henry had 800 more yards on the ground than James Cook did this year. Derrick Henry's a first ballot Hall of Famer. James Cook's got a long way to go before he's getting to that. James Cook's had 2 terrific years here. I mean, back-to-back 1,000-yard years, damn near leading the league in touchdowns this year. It's no slight at James Cook. But, geez, I mean, Derrick Henry's in a different universe, a different level. We're talking all-time stuff here. And they're 2 completely different players. They're completely different. It's almost like a different position. James Cook couldn't play the position the way Derrick Henry could. Nobody can. Saquon, I guess, closely, but, you know, Saquon is different in the sense that I think he's much more of I think he's got more athleticism. He doesn't have the brute force, though, I think that Henry does. Once again, I just don't think anybody does. Henry looks like a tight end running the football, and at the same time, looks like, I don't know. I can't put Derrick Henry into a box in terms of describing him. I think it's a damn shame how underrated, and it's crazy to say, but I think Derrick Henry's year that he's had has been exceptionally underrated because of the MVP talk, right? We knew Derrick Henry to be Derrick Henry because his quarterbacks in Tennessee were mediocre at best. You know, Mike Vrabel got that Tennessee team to a 1 seed in the AFC because of Derrick Henry. And that's crazy. I mean, you don't really think about teams anymore that are capable of doing stuff like they, you know, are capable of doing towards the top of the league without exceptional quarterback play. And they were able to do that in Tennessee with only Derrick Henry. I mean, we talk about Saquon Barkley's year, like, you know, the history surrounding that, how he could have quite easily have broken Sanders' all-time record, or Dickinson's all-time record. Derrick Henry wasn't far off, like, at all. Derrick Henry finished 79 yards shy of a 2,000-yard season. And no one, like, I feel like really no one talks about it. I mean, they do, but they don't talk about it nearly to the level that they do with Saquon. And that's because Jalen Hurts is not an MVP quarterback. Think about how much we talked about Saquon Barkley this year compared to how we talked about Derrick Henry. And I'm sitting here thinking, and this is what I'm hoping the Bills are not thinking. They cannot overlook tomorrow. You can't. The one thing that would be a major, you know, roadblock for them is that they're looking at what Baltimore just did, and they're already overlooking Denver in preparation for what could potentially be the matchup with Baltimore. You can't do that. I can do that, however. I'm not playing tomorrow. And I sit here and I'm thinking to myself, like, what are they going to have to do to win that football game? And immediately what comes, I don't think that you can limit the run game enough to have it not be an impact. I think it's almost like defense be damned. Like, I just think the offense is going to have to score 34 or 40 points. And then you're going to have to hope that you make one less mistake than them, whether that's a turnover or a 4th down conversion missed kick, whatever. We can't get ahead of ourselves, though. Tomorrow's huge. Tomorrow's huge. Couple more super chats here. My man Richie coming in late night. Richie Fresh. What we say about Tomlin is how we feel about McDermott at times. Agreed. I think I see, there's comparisons from Tomlin and McDermott all the time. Tomlin gets rolled in wild card, and we get it in divisional. The only saving grace Tomlin had was Lombardi. I see the comparisons. I wholeheartedly agree. However, Mike Tomlin's been with that team for 18 years, right? The McDermott experiment is what? 8 years old. Tomlin's a decade in over McDermott. Also, McDermott has mostly been known for suffering very devastating close losses. I know we have the really lopsided loss to the Chiefs, but that was in the AFC Championship. Anyway, I think we all can agree the Bills weren't quite at the level that they are now in that game. To me, the only really brutal, didn't show up, got just completely outclassed and completely destroyed, really, even though the score doesn't totally reflect that, was the Bengals game a couple of years ago in the divisional. Outside of that, I don't think the playoff performances for McDermott recently, of course, because you can't compare the two wholeheartedly based on the fact that Tomlin was unbelievable early on with those Hall of Fame litany of Hall of Fame player riddled Pittsburgh Steelers teams of the late 2000s, early 2000 teens. He's lost devastating losses as of late, mostly McDermott, whereas Mike Tomlin's getting rolled, destroyed. And, the quarterback's also a huge part of that too. But we all know, man. I mean, I'm sitting here talking about Tomlin. Don't get it twisted. McDermott goes out there and loses tomorrow. And these exact same conversations are going to be had on a major scale. Not that they already weren't last year. They were having these I was having these conversations. Not that I was on the one side of wanting to have the conversation. I was kind of, defending the other side that seemed to be the loudest in terms of wanting him gone after that loss last year. So the conversations were already being had, but as well as I do, they lose tomorrow, and those conversations are going to be turned up to 11, and I'm not going to be here to defend it anymore because there is going to be no excuse for losing that football game tomorrow. And if McDermott does lose that football game tomorrow, unfortunately, I'm going to have to jump onto that side of the train in terms of having that conversation. So you're right, Richie. You're nailing it on the head. The only thing I think is different is that I don't see the improvement for Pittsburgh. I think we've seen incremental improvement from Buffalo throughout McDermott's tenure here, and I think you really saw it this year. And they've also lost very narrowly in the playoffs. The Steelers are getting destroyed, killed, and they're completely falling apart at the end of the year. But in a nutshell, I agree with you in the sense that there are comparisons to be drawn there. And I think, once again, if McDermott has a similar fate that Tomlin had today, tomorrow, the exact same conversations will be had. Richie's coming in saying, Bob, I'll say it for you. Pitt is that bad. Honestly, I agree with you. The thing is that they're not for 2 months of the year. That's the really weird thing about them. But they're starting to become like Dallas to me, or Pittsburgh, or Miami, where you just know the cookie is going to crumble eventually. And what's odd about them is that the cookie looks really damn good for 2 months. I mean, fresh out of the oven. We're talking ready to eat, dunk them in some milk type stuff. And then all of a sudden you get to December and they look like, cookies that you left baking out in the sun for 2 months. It's weird. I don't quite get it. What I don't get about them is how they win as much as they do in the regular season. The Bills, we understand how they win. They got one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game. I don't quite understand how the hell Pittsburgh wins as much as they do. Because they really don't play exceptionally well, really, ever. They are a very, very odd football team to me. All right. It's 12:30. We did an hour. I got to get some sleep. I got to get up at like 6:37. We're out the door tomorrow on our way to Orchard Park at 8. We'll be in the lots around 9:30. Bottle of Jameson has been secured. We are having a day tomorrow. Usually it's like, something in the can, whether that's pause. Holy hell. Sorry about that. Usually we're doing the canned drinks, whether that's like I can't do beer because I have celiac. So whether that's twisted tea or I love those Arnold Palmer. Sorry. I just saw Mojo Chops crying emoji. I'm sorry. That triggered me there for a second. I'm sorry. It kind of just came full circle. That was funny, man. Usually I'm doing like the twisted teas or the Arnold Palmer, spiked Arnold Palmers. I love those. The Surfsides, love those. I mean, I'll do White Claw, but the carbonation kills me. So I don't do those a lot, but why I don't always do liquor at the games, man. But tomorrow's a liquor day. We got the bottle of Jameson, and I'm very, very excited. Very excited for tomorrow. I know the energy is going to be wild. I know that the vibes from start to finish are going to be off the charts. I'm very excited. And like I said, it's last night. It's going to be a heat wave in Buffalo for this time of year, right? 31 degrees, no wind, no elements, right? No rain, no snow. It's going to be perfect. I can't wait. And look, we just got 2 horseshit blowout games. I'm hoping we get another one tomorrow at 1:00. I'm hoping we're getting another one tomorrow at 1:00, and then let the 2 after that be good, or the 3 after that, but the 2 tomorrow, let those be good. We already had 2 shit games, and I said to my dad earlier, I said, I don't want the Bills game to be the first classic of the playoffs. I just don't want it. Keep the ball rolling here. Give the people what they don't want, and that's just beating the brakes off of Denver tomorrow. And then after that, maybe we get a couple of good games. I don't want tomorrow's Bills game to be a good game. I want it to be domination. What's BT saying? Bartek saying, I'm in New Orleans for the weekend. Found a Bills backer bar. Wow. BT, enjoy New Orleans. Man, it's one of the only major cities in the country that I have not been to that I very, very much want to go to. I'm jealous, Bartek. Have a great time. Be safe out there. I know after everything that happened a couple weeks ago, so be safe out there. But, man, have a ball. Jealous. I've heard nothing but great things about New Orleans. It looks incredible. Every time I see people out there and hanging out there, it looks like a ball. Food's apparently off the charts. I know the nightlife, of course, is too. So have a blast. And, God, we're hoping we get there in February, aren't we? We're hoping we're back there in February. Bartek saying it's like Nashville vibes. All right, well, if that's the case, then I'm all in. I love myself some Nashville. Love it. Been in Nashville a bunch, but just haven't gotten out to New Orleans. Hopefully, hey, maybe I'll get a chance to go out there in February. I doubt I do, though, because the Bills won't make it. Don't get me wrong, but just because I've told you a million times, I don't think I can bring myself to go and be a part of the whole festivity. I have to be bunkered down, locked in. Richie's saying, J-Mo Ginger, you better believe it, Richie. You better believe it. Top 5 drink. God, honestly, it might be top 2 for me, and I don't know if it's 2. I love J-Mo Ginger. J-Mo Ginger, to me, extremely elite. Love Jameson. I love ginger ale. It's a match made in heaven. What else we got in here before we close up shop? Cliff's coming in. Beat the Donkeys. Cliff wants to see his division rival get buried tomorrow. He already got to see one get buried today. Cliff's wanted to make it 2 for 2 tomorrow. Well, we hope we can oblige, Cliff. We hope we can. Adventure with smiles. Have fun tomorrow, bot. We going to and need to win this game. Have fun as well, my friend. We do need to win it. But we need to win it in a way where it's not obviously at this point of the season, you don't care how you win, but I would love to see them roll tomorrow because you saw Baltimore roll today. You saw Houston roll today. I'd love to see the Bills roll tomorrow. God, I would love it. BT saying, hope you have a great time. Appreciate you, brother. Hope you have an even better time out in New Orleans. Enjoy that Bills backers bar. Man, I bet you that's going to be a ball tomorrow. That's going to be a ball tomorrow. Well, you're going to have to let me know on the next show in the chat how that goes down because I'm looking forward to hearing about it. GP coming in. Kudos on your hype reel. Way better than the Bills one. Hell yeah. Appreciate it. We put out the hype reel this afternoon over on the Buffalo Fanatics socials. Go check it out. I saw Micah Hyde's one, though. I really enjoyed the Micah Hyde hype reel or the hype video. That was cool. I liked it. Because it kind of emphasized what I had thought about Micah Hyde's return, coming back to be a part of all this. I'm interested to see if Micah Hyde gets any burn. I doubt it. I really doubt it. But it was cool to watch that video, see how pumped up he is. You know what I mean? Richie's saying, you ever do Moscow Mules? Richie, of course. Richie, do I look like a rookie to you? Moscow Mules are elite. The only problem is it's tough to whip up the Moscow Mule at the tailgate. Caroline makes an incredible Moscow Mule. I think I might have said this before, but Caroline used to have a bartending business. Caroline's an elite bartender. Elite. Off the charts. Caroline, I'd put her up against anybody making top-tier drinks. She makes an incredible Moscow Mule. But I like to keep it plain and simple at the tailgate. I don't go too crazy in terms of the ingredients and all the mixing and matching. I like to keep it nice and simple, usually like two things. Richie's saying he saw Kyle Williams at the Buffalo store today. No kidding. Did you go up and say hey? Love Kyle Williams, man. I'm looking forward to seeing him lead the charge tomorrow. I bet you that place is going to be nuclear when he comes out to get everybody going. Snook saying he wants Romo as the commentator. I think Romo is the commentator tomorrow. Is he not? I'm pretty sure he is. Yeah, because Iron Eagle was on the call today. I saw someone in here earlier say something about the motel lot. Wait, Hank the Tank's going to be there tomorrow? Scotty? Did he say that? Oh, my God. I would love to meet that guy. That dude has given me a couple of, real solid belly laughs. Guy kills me. Is he really going to be there tomorrow? I'm checking it out. I don't know. I can't confirm or deny. I will say, though, recently the Barstool videos with Gruden have been my favorite. Watching Gruden just talk football in a casual setting. Some of these videos are unbelievable. Like today, he was having a conversation they were in the cave there watching the games, and he's talking to somebody, and he's talking about Andrew Luck, and he's just going through all these things that you would never know. And he was talking about how Andrew Luck, when he first met him, all he wanted to do was kind of watch film and how to beat a cover six or whatever. And then Gruden goes on to say, he goes, Andrew Luck was made by the gods, man. Or he's like, Andrew Luck was a quarterback made by the gods, man, or something like that. It just killed me. And then that story he told about Sebastian Janikowski getting absolutely off his ass cocked the night before a game, and then he sends him in to go kick a field goal, kind of to punish him because he figured he wouldn't make it, and he nails it like a 50, 60-yard field goal. If you haven't watched any of the Gruden stuff that's come out recently, my God, it's killing me. Court Gesture saying the 500th game for Jim Nantz tomorrow. Yes, I saw that. Man, I love to see that. The Buffalo Bills gave Jim Nantz a game ball today. You know how they do the custom game balls where they have, it's a normal ball, and they put the white panel on it with the stats or the name on it or whatever. They gave one to Jim Nantz for his 500th game. That was so cool. I am such a huge... I haven't been obsessed with broadcasting my whole life. Went to school for it. Obviously, do this with you guys. Always been very in touch and fascinated with the field. Jim Nantz is man. He's a pro's pro. Jim Nantz. I mean, you know how they say he's a comedian's comedian. Like Jim Nantz is a broadcaster's broadcaster. One of the all-time GOATs, Mount Rushmore type guy. 500th game tomorrow. Doesn't really get better than Jim Nantz in a variety of different ways. So I thought that was a really cool gesture by the Bills. Just goes to show you, man, everybody respects that guy. Everybody's got a ton of respect, love, and admiration for Jim Nantz. He is truly one of the best. I saw someone in here say something about they're going to be at the motel. Yeah, Cameron Heffler. Ziba, are we ready for the motel lot tomorrow? Hell yeah, that's where I'm going to be. Cam, you going to be there? I'm going to be there tomorrow. Now, I'm leaving here at like 8. I don't know what time I'm going to get to that lot because I don't know if I'm going to park. I don't know if I'm going to park in that lot yet because it's a total bitch to park in. Like, it's a total nightmare getting in and out of because it's right on Mile Strip there. So usually what we do is we park on one of the side streets at somebody's house. Incredibly easy to get in and out of, and then we walk over there. But we're going with one of my dad's buddies tomorrow. I don't know if he's going to want to walk all the way over there, so we might park there. I don't know. Either way, I'll be over there at some point. It's the motel lot over next to the hot dog joint. The hell's the name of that hot dog place? I always forget the name of it. But you know what I'm talking about, the big yellow hot dog joint. Yeah, that's where I'll be at some point. So looking forward to it. I'll be there bright and early. Yeah, good thing it's at 1 o'clock. The nice thing about the 1 o'clock games, you only have a certain amount of time to tailgate. It's a good time. It's an enough amount. But you get to those 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock territories, it's where things can get a little crazy. Not that I don't like crazy, but I like calculated crazy because you only have a certain amount of time. Then you get in there. Yes, Ted's. Or is it Louis? I don't know what it is. David's saying Ted's. Richie's saying Louis. It's the big yellow one right next to the stadium. Like right next to the stadium, the big yellow hot dog joint. There's a motel that's right next to it that I always tailgate in with all my buddies. Typically, there's like a bunch of school buses in that motel lot, and it's a good time in there. And Bootsy's saying that's why 4 and 8 is better. I mean, don't get me wrong. Don't get me twisted. I do love that too. I don't like, even though I said I got the JMO going tomorrow, I'm going to be keeping it respectable because I cannot overserve myself for a playoff game. I got to be dialed in. I got to be locked in. You can't be entirely locked in when you're off a fifth of Jameson. So I'm going to be keeping it respectable, but I'm still going to be keeping it 100. You know what I mean? To find that nice median. You got to find that nice median. It's the best place to be. That's where you want to be. You get into that 4 o'clock, 8 o'clock territory. So you start to veer to one side of the fence over the other, right? So I do like the fact that tomorrow is 1 o'clock. God, I'm amped. It's officially game day, by the way. I forgot to wish you guys a happy game day 46 minutes ago, but it is officially game day. God, we got nearly 1,300 of you in here right now at nearing 1 o'clock Eastern as we get set for football. We're literally what? God, we're 12 hours away. We're 12 hours away from Buffalo Bills playoff football, and I can't wait for it. I'm sure you guys can't either. I can't wait to talk about it with you. Now, so here's the plan. You guys let me know in the comments what you'd rather I do. Should I come home tomorrow after the game and do a late night smoke break recap of the game tomorrow night? Or should we save it for Monday when I, got a little bit more time to collect myself and then talk about it then? You let me know what you'd rather I do, and we'll do it. Maybe we could do both. I don't know. It's going to depend on how I'm feeling in terms of the vibe of the game, right? But I got a feeling we roll tomorrow. You'll see me tomorrow night. That's how I'm feeling. Either way, you'll see me within the next couple of days. Probably do both. I don't see why not. If the game is as good as I hope it's going to be, then maybe we'll do both. But either way, you got your boy Rico, my boy Rico, our boy Rico. Tomorrow on the pregame and the postgame, I'm going to miss him. It's the worst part about going to the game. The worst part about going to the game is not being able to be on with you guys for the pre and the post. I hate it. It gets me so, I get such bad anxiety when the game's over and I'm not on there, because I hate it. It's my favorite part about outside of the game, it's my favorite part of Sunday, right? Getting on and talking about it, win or lose. So I hate that when I go that I can't do it. And I've tried joining from the stadium, and the reason I don't do it, it never works. It's a total nightmare. The internet always cuts out, and if I do get on, it looks like ass, and you can barely hear me. It just never really works out. The internet's always terrible at all of these places, no matter what. And this is what always has killed me. As much as technology is advanced and cell phones have been around for what feels like my entire life now, it still really hasn't changed in the sense that when you are in a very crowded area, the cell service is garbage. That has yet to improve. I don't get it. We've gone from 3G to 4G to 5G. I mean, pretty soon it's going to be 10G. Regardless of the G you got and the number next to it, I don't quite understand why that hasn't improved. I should be able to go live at the stadium, no problem. If I've got 5 bars of 5G LTE, why does it feel like I got dial-up going on? I don't know, but you're going to see me either late tomorrow night, Monday, or both, and I'm looking forward to it. Looking forward to the game. Can't wait to talk about it, folks. I hope you have a terrific rest of your evening, and more importantly, I hope you have a terrific game day tomorrow. Enjoy every second of it. It's playoff football, baby. It comes and goes awfully quick, so enjoy it while we got it. Lock in tomorrow. Dial in. Let's get this other effing W. Cannot wait for it. On your way out the door, like button if you could. Subscribe button if you could. And as I've mentioned to you throughout the week here, right now on BetUS, the line is up for the game that is kicking off in just 12 short hours. Bills, Broncos. The Bills are a 9.5-point favorite at home with the total of 47.5. Get in on the action using the promo code YouTube150 on BetUS. That'll get you a 150% sign-up bonus, up to $2,000 on your first deposit, 125% bonus on your next 2 after that. All right, that's going to do it, folks. Get some sleep. We got a game in 12 short hours. Can't wait. Talk to you soon. Much love as always. Let's get it done. Go Bills.